and I know that we've got some folks maybe joining us at the table for the first time. Certainly, Jason, you are here to represent Chief Superintendent Kate Stevens, so you're most welcome. You are on the executive, I think, anyway. So you're most welcome and joining us on the board today. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
So just so that everyone is aware, this will be recorded and will be published online following the meeting. So that is just so that everyone is aware of that. It is a publicly accessible meeting. So can I ask then, first of all, if members have any declarations of interests in the items on the agenda? If you just pop your hand up, I'll take you in. No interest to declare. Okay, thank you very much. Can I ask then that you agree to abide by or to consider and abide by the public sector equality duty? And that is to note that in taking decisions on the items of business, you would have due regard to the need to eliminate discrimination, harassment and victimisation, to advance equality of opportunity between those who share a protected characteristic and persons who do not share it, and foster good relations between those who share a protected characteristic and persons who do not share it, and where an integrated impact assessment is provided, to consider its contents and take those into account when reaching a decision. Can we agree that, please?
Agreed.
That's agreed. Thank you very much. Item 4 on the agenda is the minute of the board meeting on the 4th of December. Can I ask that you agree that that is a correct note of the meeting? If you don't agree and there are any issues you wish to raise, if you raise your hand and I'll bring you in. No indications, so that is a correct record of the meeting and has been approved. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the action sheet, and that is 4.1 on your agenda pack. There are a number of actions starting at page 7. So we have got some outstanding actions on pages 7, 8 and 9, and one that has been completed since the last meeting. I would ask maybe if we can start to move some of these off. I know that there'll be some coming off after the discussion today, so that would be helpful. But just to try and reduce these actions so we can clear the decks a bit. Colleagues, do you have any questions or comments based on the actions that are outstanding for the board's attention? If you indicate, I'll bring you in. No indications? Oh, sorry, Sarah, thank you.
I just wanted to make a quick comment as regards the revised governance framework around partner representation. So there is a note in there to say that it's a national approach which is being looked at, but I wondered if it was useful for the board for me to expand on that a little bit in terms of what we mean by that exactly. So since the last meeting, I have been having a number of conversations with colleagues, whether that be around the CPP space nationally or whether that be within COSLA, and those colleagues have been discussing the similarity in the issues that we face in terms of partner membership in some areas of our CPP work, and the gaps that we're facing in terms of CPP membership. It's absolutely not an exclusively Aberdeenshire problem. And so we have been having a number of discussions about that. And part of the conversation has actually come back to it would be less useful, actually, if all of the CPPs around Scotland were approaching a range of national agencies, asking them to participate in their particular piece of work. And so there was definitely a feeling that being able to leverage some kind of change would be best done at a national level with some of the national statutory partners. It's about understanding their role around community planning. I can hear myself coming back at me.
Someone has a microphone on.
Oh, that's it. Great. So it is around having some of these conversations at a national level to help partners understand their role in community planning across the piece. But certainly Aberdeenshire is very much at the heart of those discussions, and we're continuing to be involved in it. Part of what we have talked about also is reframing some of the discussions and the terminology around membership. So for some of the agencies who are struggling to see their role around community planning, there have been discussions about potentially starting to introduce them as subject matter experts, bringing them in on a topic by topic basis to discuss particular pieces of work where they can bring expertise to the CPP table, and not a universal expectation of full attendance at every meeting. So there will be the statutory partners, there will continue to be the non-statutory partners. And what we're looking at around the governance framework now is moving to that third tier of membership almost on a subject matter expert perspective, a subject matter expert basis, to allow those partners to bring their expertise to the table at the right time. So those conversations are continuing to happen, and you will see them reflected in the next iteration of the governance document that the board is presented with in due course.
Thank you, Sarah. That's very helpful. Anyone, any questions on that at all? No, so we'll look forward to more information coming forward, Sarah, and I think it's a very good approach. I think already, whether it's voluntarily or following decision or discussion rather, some of our partners who used to attend have indeed taken that approach in any case. So if we can certainly firm that up within our governance arrangements, that would be really helpful. So thank you for that. And thank you for taking that forward in the way that you have. Okay, so those are noted, and that sheet will be updated following discussion today, and obviously any other actions that we wish to record will be taken forward. So thank you for that. That takes us then to item 5 in your agenda, which is the verbal update from the Chair of the Community Planning Partnership Executive. And I'm not sure Keith's on the call and when Nicola is here, but I'm very pleased to acknowledge the appointment of Keith Anderson from AVA and Nicola Graham from SDS, who have taken up the posts of Chair and Vice Chair of the Executive, respectively. So thank you very much indeed. And we have had an opportunity to have a quick catch up before today. So again, I think that was really helpful. But there's usually an item on the agenda where we get an update from the chair. Now, Keith is going to join us, I think, very shortly, I believe. So we'll have to be kind because he's only just newly in the door, so to speak. But I'm sure that will be very helpful to hear from Keith and his perspective. And if Nicola wants to say anything following that, then you'd be most welcome, Nicola. Mr. Simpson, you'd like to comment, Rob?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And apologies, this may be a short-lived appointment of Chair of the Executive, as unfortunately it went to the AVA board, and this is relatively recent news, and they have stated that Keith should not take on the chairing as they do not believe that AVA have capacity to take that on. So we'll work that one through off table, Chair, if we may, and perhaps we could have a separate discussion around that, but just flag that one up. So while Nicola is staying as Vice Chair, we will need to look at the chairing responsibilities again, unfortunately. But Keith will hopefully be with us shortly to provide the update from the last meeting, which will be his final update as Chair also.
Well, I think that's very unfortunate, to be perfectly honest. And in the meantime, will you assume the role till we get an alternative chair?
Yes, it will revert back to myself, and as I say, we'll look at that chairing responsibilities going forward. I suppose my message to all is that none of us have endless capacity around this, but this is a really important and vital role of partnership working that we all have. So we'd urge partners to consider the ability of their organisations to take on that chairing. I think it is reasonable to suggest that it is shared out amongst partners rather than it sitting with one consistently, but I will revert back to myself at the moment, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that. So if somebody can just alert us to Keith's when he joins us, then we can come back to that. I'm going to move on in the meantime. Item 6 is Aberdeenshire CPP finances, which include the financial update, which is attached to your papers. And we have a recommendation seeking approval, and I'll hand to Sarah, please.
Yes, me again. So following the last meeting, we took an action also to bring back a more comprehensive financial update to the board, and hopefully the paper illustrates and outlines the progress that we've been taking in terms of clarifying that position. So a discussion has taken place already at exec level around partner funding and partner contributions into the work of the Community Planning Partnership, and you can see that information laid out in the papers in front of you at around 8.3. So that was discussed in principle and agreed in principle at an exec level in terms of partner contributions. It's really useful because it provides us a little bit of clarity for future about the contribution of partners to the pot for funding community planning partnership work. So it's something that has been a long time needed in terms of documenting exactly what that breakdown looks like. But of course, that whole process needs to be endorsed here by the board for your consideration and discussion. There is a section also in here that I would like to draw your attention to around the CPP website. Again, a further conversation that took place at the board, at the exec, around the endorsement of the development of the website, continuing to host it where it is and continuing to maintain it as a partner resource. But again, the decision to continue funding that is one which absolutely will be for this group. But there is a section in the papers around financial, a certain amount of financial delegation through Rob himself and myself to allow us to continue to fund that piece of work. So hopefully the paper makes quite clear the position where we are, and you have 4 recommendations in front of you today. Happy to take any questions about it or to explain or clarify any of the sections that sit in here.
Thank you, Sarah. Would anyone have any questions based on the paper, please? The recommendations are to note the budget monitoring information, to consider and agree on the CPP's approach to joint sustainable resourcing, to deliver the priorities, and consider and agree on the recommendation presented by the executive regarding the funding of the current website and grant authorisation for the delegation of management duties, and to consider and agree on the unallocated funds and process for partners requesting funding. So those are the recommendations. So can I invite Dr. Tomlinson, please? John.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would support what's being proposed on the website. I just wondered if there's a bit more information about the traffic around the website and what the trends are on that.
I don't have that information at my fingertips, but I can absolutely provide that to you, and I can get that to you. I am not sure if that's something that Finlay has access to right away just now, but we can certainly feed that back in through the board. What we would propose, however, and this did form part of the discussion at the exec, was around probably a lack of awareness across the partners at the exec level, even about the presence of the CPP website and the content that sits on it. And so we would be proposing a refresh of the site as we move into the new financial year, with agreement from the board, of course. We'd be proposing a refresh in an attempt to clean out some of the content that's on there, potentially look at the look and feel of it, and relaunch it, for want of a better word, so that at an exec level and a board level and a community level, people have more visibility and awareness of the CPP website and the resources that sit on it. So in terms of information and figures, absolutely can provide that to you, but we would be hoping to do a bit of a relaunch of the site in short order if that direction of travel is agreed.
If I can come back, Anne?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, no, and that's where I was heading in terms of the promotion of the site. So all very well maintaining it, but without that promotion, and that can become a bit redundant. So that's welcome, and that can be achieved within the resources that you're asking.
Yes, and we have networks of communications partners across CPP, albeit it's a group that doesn't meet in any kind of formal capacity. All of the CPP partner communications teams can have increased visibility of the site and encouraged to share and utilise the resources that are on there as well. So it's not just about driving that traffic for wider awareness, it's about all of our teams having access to the useful information that sits on the CPP website and using it as a resource for all the partners as well. So yes, absolutely, that would be part of a campaign that we would do.
Thank you.
John, thank you. Lindsay, please.
Yeah, thanks. It was just around the paper in general in terms of like some assurance, or some assurances like could perhaps be strengthened within the paper, just in terms of how funding is then allocated and those decisions are made, and also linked to that about the governance of the spend and then the feedback loops in terms of when it's been spent and the outcomes that have been achieved from that. So what are we kind of seeing for that spend that we've got? And the other thing just to flag is that, and I apologies, I don't have the context for this, I wasn't at the exec, but just in terms of partners and where the money is coming from, has there been a discussion with someone in NHS Grampian about their contribution to this and exactly where that is coming from? Because I understand it's comes from Grampian, NHS Grampian, it goes to the IGB. John, apologies, you might know more on this than I do, but I think there just needs to be some clarity on that, and I'm not sure there's the right people in the meeting today to be able to confirm that, unless perhaps you can, John, because I can't see, I think Adam had submitted apologies, and I can't see Pam here either.
No, there's no one else here, Lindsay.
I could find the name of the colleague who confirmed the resourcing for, oh, Finlay's just popped his hand up. He's Finlay's going to be able to confirm. So this was discussed at length at the exec, and there was one of your colleagues around that. Now, from where within NHS Grampian funding, he didn't make that necessarily clear, but there was a commitment from the partners who do provide funding into CPP budgets that that they were all keen for that to continue, and we'll find the name of that individual. I don't know if you've got that there, Finlay.
Yes, it was the Director of Finance that's on the exec.
Okay.
So he's already spoken to Adam, I think, at some point as well. So those loops have been closed.
And in terms of that, sorry.
No, sorry, I was just going to say that's ideal. Thanks. It's just helpful to have that because I didn't want to be saying today, for example, that was okay, because I'm not in a position to do that. So thank you for that clarity.
And I think it does come separately to through the IGB. I don't think it does go through that route. I think we get this as a sort of separate piece of work. And in terms of the loop and the feedback, it would be my understanding of the process that requests to utilise that money go through the exec in the first instance and can get escalated for larger sums through this discussion, and that we would look to bring back a financial update on a hopefully annual basis to show where the money has been spent and what it's been spent on. So that would be the kind of the loop of transparency around that.
Okay, Lindsay.
Yeah, thanks. Just to say, Sarah, can that then be included in the report and the framework? Then that loop will be there.
Put it through the governance, yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
It is planned.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other indications, so on that basis, we go back to those recommendations on page 11, 1.2.1 to 1.2.4, and can we agree that, please? And that's agreed. And again, thank you, Sarah, for the work you've done to bring that paper to the board. Thank you. Item 7 on our agenda is delivering a place-based approach to healthy eating, active living, otherwise known as HEAL, in Aberdeenshire. And this would be the final report that we would receive in this format. There's been an awful lot of work done over a considerable amount of time, and there is a comprehensive report before you with an appendix and IIAs. So we have George Howie here with us. And George, can I ask you just to give a very brief overview, please, because we do have the papers here. The recommendations are on page 19 at 2.1 and 2.2. Thank you, George.
Of course, Chair. Yes, thank you very much. The paper, as you'll see, provides an update on some of the recent work undertaken by the HEAL Strategic Partnership Group to refocus the HEAL agenda in Aberdeenshire. Part of that work has included, as you rightly laid out, Chair, the work that's articulated in Appendix 1 and 2. So Appendix 1 provides a summary of work that was undertaken in relation to kind of mapping the place and wellbeing outcomes, which are obviously fundamental to our place planning approach in Aberdeenshire, against the kind of key actions and recommendations outlined in one of the 2 key evidence documents that are mentioned in the report, and that's the 7 levers for local action report. That was a helpful exercise in terms of flagging up some potential gaps that we may need to be aware of. But I would draw your attention really to Appendix 2, which provides an update on recent work in relation to HEAL-related data. And that describes in a bit of detail work that's been undertaken to review a series of HEAL data sets. I think we reviewed 14 data sets in total at this stage, 8 of which provide data at an intermediate data zone level. And the purpose of that has been to try and help us to identify a local area within Aberdeenshire that we may use to test what we're calling a kind of place plus approach to the HEAL agenda in Aberdeenshire. That is an approach which would do 2 things. One would be to integrate an approach to HEAL within the context of place planning at a local level, and for that then to be complemented with additional action if that's required for things that may more effectively be addressed perhaps at an Aberdeenshire or even a Grampian level. So that data is there for your consideration. What we've presented there is some kind of key highlights from a range of the data that we've reviewed, and we've pulled out, just as an example, a range of data related to Turriff as a geographical area, just to give a bit of an insight into the type of data that we are going to be using over the next few weeks and months, actually, to help identify an area where we could potentially test a more local approach to HEAL within the context of place planning. And that would help to inform discussion with area manager colleagues and other partners at a local level that will be involved in supporting the place planning process. So happy to leave it there at this moment, Chair, and happy to pick up any questions.
Thank you very much indeed, George. And again, thank you for the report. Will this be shared with the Population Health Alliance, or is that an automatic thing? Because we've got the chair of the certainly NHSG committee, and I know that our chief executive, Mr. Savage, is involved in PHA as well. So will this go to them as part of their information and data gathering?
That hasn't happened to date, but if that's felt to be useful, we can certainly ensure that that's done, actually, Chair.
Well, I would just invite maybe the chief exec and or John in, if you've any views on that. Yeah. I don't want to send things your way if it's not appropriate.
Through you, Pam, I'm not sure that it needs to go to the Population Health Alliance board for its own purposes. I mean, the board has just done some work and identified a focus on obesity and substance misuse as being its 2 areas of primary focus. So there's an alignment in terms of the prioritisation. I don't think it wouldn't be necessary for this report to go. I think I can make sure that it is known that there is a commonality of prioritisation and agenda, and we can make sure there's good joint working. I think the focus is one in terms of having a ground-up approach, and the Population Health Alliance board is there to support that local working activity. So I think, in blunt way, we'll get on with it as opposed to share papers between boards.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's helpful. I wasn't really don't know if I was saying share papers, but certainly the data here may be of interest. But happy to leave it with you all, and you can draw on it as is appropriate. So I just wondered if there was a link or not. Thank you for that, though. John, please.
Yeah, thank you. There was a paper to the Population Health Committee which was looking at the links with CPPs, which we had at our last meeting. And one of the things that we considered was that we should hear from the CPPs on particular issues that they're engaged in. So I'd be quite happy for the data on this to go through our public health people who've probably been engaged in it anyway, and then back to us with specific reference. Because I know the other two CPPs will have issues as well. As Jim's saying, it's about doing the work. But if that committee can help pull some of this together, that might be useful. I know there's been bids to the charity fund of NHS Grampian for potential work around this. And that's where that committee might be able to assist. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that. It's just so that everybody's cited on it, and this paper is about embedding. So thank you for that. Lindsay.
Yeah, thanks. It was just to add to the conversation in terms of sharing this in a bit more of a joined up approach as well. Some of the work was started in Aberdeen City in terms of understanding some of the data around obesity. And we've taken it and we've got a bit of a different lens on it in terms of the 7 levers. And what we're looking to do is join this up so that we've not got duplication. So there is absolutely links and that kind of shared learning coming across as well. And my understanding is that some of this work will then link in with that kind of priorities around for NEFA as well in terms of what the data can do to inform that. But yeah, absolutely looking to move towards our kind of actions with this.
Yeah, that's helpful, everyone. Thank you all very much. Jim, thanks.
With apologies from the start if I've missed something in the paper, but if I read it correctly, we're saying that we're wanting to take the focus in terms of obesity and look at it through our sort of our place plans, which I think is good in terms of integration. If I recall our conversation previously, what we had been concerned about is we wanted to make sure that we had some targeted focus in terms of areas of greatest need and some targeted focus in terms of interventions of greatest benefit. I still feel as though we haven't grasped that yet, accepting what Lindsay said in terms of that sort of further work. Simply taking the same potential scope of activity, which we felt was maybe too much, and putting them into different plans doesn't help us rationalise what's going to give us the biggest bang for our buck and where to focus more. So I do think that through this board, we've still got some work to do. Whilst we're taking it into a different framework, we still have got that outstanding exam question in terms of what are the best interventions for us to get behind and which communities do we really need to focus on the most. So I think it feels like a positively work in progress that the CPP still needs to keep a firm handle on in terms of whether we have any impact and effect that we are doing. And I still think that there's outstanding work to do to really address the points of query we raised before, which is about prioritisation of effort. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think, oh, sorry, Lindsay, and you come. On you go.
Sorry, it's okay, Chair. I'll let George come in first if that's where you were going.
Okay.
Yeah, surely. Yes. No. Just to say, Jim. Yeah, thank you for that feedback. Actually, and certainly, yes, we've got a bit of further work to do around the data, but essentially, the purpose of that exercise is to try and identify those areas of need. So we're looking at our local communities through a series of different lenses, if you like, and looking at those local communities in relation to a series of different metrics. And certainly our initial analysis would suggest that there's no single community or area in Aberdeenshire that is experiencing poor outcomes across the board. It's a more nuanced picture than that, but the next stage is really to follow up that initial data work that we've done with some conversations with kind of subject experts, as I think how we've referred to them in the paper. So that's people that have an understanding of particular strands of that data and can perhaps help us highlight any nuances or issues that we need to be aware of. But the purpose of that is really to identify those needs in our local communities and identify a single community where we might test a more local approach. And the 7 Levers report and Scotland's Diet and Healthy Way delivery plan both give a strong steer in terms of the specific actions that we need to put in place at a number of different levels, ranging from population level through to individual level.
Thanks for that, George. And I think, I mean, this project or this program's been around for many years now, and it goes back to Kim Penman when Kim was in post, and there's been an awful lot of work done over those years, and I'm certainly very keen to see this embedded in the day-to-day business, and this is what this report's asking us to approve. So the recommendation at 2.2 says that the relevant HEAL developments will be reported to the CPP board within the context of place planning activity. And I think, I mean, I don't know what others think, but I would be content to receive reports on that basis, because this does have to be embedded in everybody's day-to-day business if it's a priority for us all. Happy to take any views on that. Notwithstanding what, the conversation that we've just had, of course. John.
Yeah, I think for the purposes of the board here, that makes sense. But I do think that for us collectively in the North East, and for us looking across Aberdeenshire, there's something that still doesn't quite add up yet for me. We're saying 66% of adults are going to be overweight, etc., and what that might impact on the health needs of the community. The scale of that is large and very significant for public expenditure going forward. So I think we haven't got a grip of that yet. And maybe it is the alliance and perhaps that overview that Lindsay was saying across the North East that would bring that into the picture. But I do think that needs to sit alongside what happens in the place space, especially as the report talks about the environmental factors as well as the personal factors. So for me, there's still something missing, which I'd like brought back at some point, and maybe that's from our public health side. Maybe Lindsay can comment on that.
Lindsay?
So yeah, I think it's really important that we do keep a handle on it. As you say, it's an absolutely pressing issue for us and a challenge moving forward. I think in terms of the reporting, there's kind of two streams to this work. One of them is about embedding it within place planning and our data and that element around the police toolkit. And with that, from the data we've looked at so far, we know that there are some things that will be within the 7 levers that are more achievable, like across Aberdeenshire, rather than taking that like real hyper-local approach, which is why you've suggested the 2 approaches. So in terms of the reporting, I think there's that part of it. And then there's also the part about that, the places that we then identify to work with a bit more closely and to take that hyper-local approach for those levers that are more relevant at that local level. So thinking about how we get the community around things like school meals, all of that. I think there's something about those places then reporting that within their place planning reporting structures as well. So there's the 2 elements that we probably want to capture. And yeah, I think there's something for us probably linking with public health, John, and the population health committee as well, is that kind of overarching what is it we're doing in different places and how we're keeping track and monitoring some of that work as well and joining up where we can.
Because I'm not clear how this partnership board can impact in the way that we need to impact without a partner taking ownership of this and moving it forward. And I think public health is where we need to go with it, given all the other work that's around it. Clearly there's a preventative element here, and etc., etc. But getting reports to every community plan and partnership board it's not going to move it forward. So I think we do need to think about a different way of taking this forward in either through PHA and or through the Public Health Committee but certainly the place plan, I think, is absolutely where it needs to sit. So have we got a way forward or have we not? Because I really don't want to see reports coming to every community plan and partnership board and it's not moving forward. So how do we progress this in the way that Lindsay and John and Jim have suggested, because we do need to actually get the actions in place to deliver on this. Rob.
Thanks, Chair. And I'm fairly going to pick on Lindsay here, just because I know Anne Overton, one of our area managers, has been doing work to pull partners together around place and look at how we prioritise focus and what have you within that. And Lindsay, I know you've been around that work. Apologies, I don't know who else has been around that. So I do wonder if that is somewhere that this can sit, so that there is that consistent focus and overview of what is happening, while pulling partners together to get the most, to get the best prioritisation and efforts out of that. So apologies, Lindsay, but perhaps you know more about that than I.
Can I take in Jim, and then we'll move to decide what we're going to do?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Anna, I think as has been expressed, I think by George and Lindsay, I feel comfortable with the approach that's been taken in terms of the sort of two-tier aspect and that focus in terms of place plans. If we want him to have, in essence, an owner, then a combination of the council and NHS Grampian working in combination as the lead bodies would seem to be reasonable to do so, given the sort of focus in terms of place plans, the council leading on the expertise coming through from NHS colleagues. But then clearly there's that wider partnership sitting underneath that as well. I think that'd be better in terms of having a very local ownership institutionally, rather than taking it to another sort of committee or body there, because there's some partnership arrangements there as well that may still struggle with the same question you're probably asking, which is about who's going to hold the pen on this stuff. And I would say NHS Grampian Council together would be the two people to keep hold of this one, if that's okay.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for that. Has everybody agreed that that's what we should do? And do the recommendations capture that then, or do we need to amend the wording? Any suggestions?
For you, Chair, if it's minutes, sort of like us that, then I'm content.
Okay, that's fine then. So we can agree the recommendations with the minute to reflect, basically capture what the Chief Exec's just said, Finlay. That would be helpful.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And again, George, can I just thank you and all your colleagues for all the work that you have done. I know you've done a huge amount of work on this project and this programme, and it looks as if it's set to continue. So thank you very, very much indeed.
Thank you, Chair, and certainly convey those thanks to colleagues that have been involved.
Thank you. So that takes us then to the final item, which is item 8, Mind Your Mind, the Aberdeenshire Mental Wellbeing Campaign. And again, we've got comprehensive report attached with recommendations on page 59. And George, is it yourself that will be introducing this again?
It's actually Carolyn Lamb that will be
is
speaking
Carolyn
to
with
this
us?
paper,
Okay.
Chair. Carolyn has pulled together the paper really in response to the feedback from the December board meeting, as you'll recall, actually.
I didn't see her on the call, but I'm advised that Carolyn's coming in.
I believe so. I believe Finlay was going to invite her in at the appropriate point.
Okay. So we'll just give her a moment to join. Is Carolyn with us, Finlay?
She should be coming. I've just sent her an email. It's not as instant as it is in the council. Apologies for the delay. Oh, there you go. Hi, Caroline.
Hi there.
Hello, Carolyn. Thank you for joining us. It's Anne Stirling here. We have your report, which is item 8 on our agenda, Mind Your Mind, Aberdeenshire Mental Wellbeing Campaign, with the recommendations. And I would just invite you to give a very brief overview, please. We have the report with us, and we'll just hand over to you now, Carolyn. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm not going to go through lots of this because I appreciate you've read probably quite a lot of this yourself. So I'm just here representing the oversight group as one of the members. We've tried our best to try and give you an update of what we have done to date over the last few years with the Mind Your Mind campaign, which is a wide mental health approach to Aberdeenshire, trying to provide key messages to the public and different professionals, groups, businesses, etc. So we were asked at the last meeting to come back with an update of what progress we had done over the last few phases of the campaign. So we've tried to give you that through various kind of just bits and pieces in this report, trying to share what kind of groups we've been reaching, what kind of processes we've been using to reach the wider public. And we couldn't put it all into this report, so that's why we've given you a link to the SWAY, which gives you much more detailed information about all the various kind of work we've done, both at individual basis and also across some of the community planning area groups that we've worked with to try and reach those messages out. Some examples would be that we've now got 20 ambassadors that work across Aberdeenshire to provide information about the key messages and where people can go to access the resources. So, and the other kind of pieces of work would be, we incorporate the Mind Your Mind key messages into other projects that we do within public health and through other organisations. And one example would be the Grampian Wellbeing Festival, where we've tried to really use that as an underlying theme to try and get those key positive mental health messages out as wide as we possibly can. It's quite difficult, I suppose, to give you an overarching of what difference we've made, because it is 3 years down the line we've doing this. So we haven't done like a wide Aberdeenshire population approach of what has been the outcome overall. So we've just tried to give you as best we could with the information in that SWAY. Do you want me to go on to just what the key things we'd asked for as part of this, or any kind of?
Is that what's in the recommendations, Carolyn?
Yes. Yeah. So the key recommendations was for us really to come back to yourselves to see if you would endorse the campaign for another 2-year period. And this would kind of give us a timescale maybe to look at how can we embed the resources as key resources that already are functioning, are usable for lots of different people in the communities, and how we could embed that possibly through local place plans as a place to, to just kind of signpost people to where do they find that information. Bearing in mind that we've got area toolkits within the Mind Your Mind. So we've got where can you go to in each of the 6 areas across Aberdeenshire. And then it was where do we go with transferring the existing Mind Your Mind assets to the option of can we put it onto the Our Aberdeenshire platform on the basis that this is a community planning board campaign. It's your assets, it's not our assets. It's a partnership approach. So whether we can embed that resources into the existing Our Aberdeenshire platform, because the website we've got at the moment isn't really functioning to how we need it to be functioning. So that was a question really around that.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Carolyn. I'll open it now for members to make any comments or ask any questions.
Thank you.
I don't see any indications. Oh, Sarah.
Do you mind if I come in just to ask a quick question as it relates to potentially migrating it to the Our Aberdeenshire website? As I mentioned before, we are doing that piece of work to refresh the website, but there would be it would be useful to understand exactly what you mean by that in terms of how much content, the scale, what it is that the current site's not doing that you would need Our Aberdeenshire site to do, just to be clear if it can actually do that and can serve the purpose that you need it to serve. So the commitment to doing this as a principle, I think is different from the practical delivery of it, and what that would actually mean for the Our Aberdeenshire website. We would need to get a little bit more clarity on that before we could be sure that that was the right place to host this information.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if that's something we can speak to you offline about, Sarah. I don't know, but just to give you a little bit of feedback, the existing Mind Your Mind website is literally just one long page. I don't know if anybody's had a look at that, but it is literally not multiple pages. It's just one functioning page. And at the moment, it doesn't tell us any kind of data around who's accessing the information unless they complete a survey. It doesn't go, it's just, probably not going to communicate this very well, but it doesn't really, it's not an easily accessible website the way it's currently working. And we've had an issue recently where the previous agency that set it up had actually blocked the website, and we could not get access to any of the information to upload or update anything. And that is a concern if we're having that issues ongoing, that it just doesn't function to our purpose at the moment.
Does anyone have any other views? Because I think probably the best way to deal with that then is if members are minded to agree in principle, and we can delegate the final decision to Mr. Simpson as the lead officer and or the chief exec, whichever is the most appropriate, in consultation with myself and the vice chair to determine what's practical and if it's possible. If it's not possible, we will come back here if we can't find a resolution. Happy to take any views from members on that basis. Folks seem to be content with that. John?
Yeah, I think that makes sense as an approach. I had one question, which was about another 2 years of funding and whether part of the way through that, there might be some indication back to the board about the development of the exit strategy or trying to move this elsewhere rather than wait for the end of the 2 years. So that was just an observation in terms of there being active work around that.
We could get a report back in a year, 12 months?
I would think so, yeah.
Is that possible, Carolyn?
Yeah, that would be no problem. Yeah,
okay.
Definitely.
Right. Okay, thank you. Jason?
Thanks, Chair. Depending the decision that's made on the future of Mind Your Mind, if it's a problem of, I suppose, exposure, then it's something Police Scotland can help with in terms of our social media channels as well, because we've got 143,000 followers on Facebook, for example. So if it's bad exposure we need, we can definitely help with that. So it's an ongoing offer of assistance.
That's excellent. Thank you very much for that offer. And Sarah, that's maybe something the executive could have a look at as well, about how it's the campaign is supported and circulated. Nicola?
Yeah, no, sorry, I just had a wee question. I saw the data there you've got around young people, and I was just wondering about the kind of reach into schools. Obviously excellent resources there, and there was talk of engagement with young people. So I was just curious about that and how that's been embedded.
Yeah, so at the moment there is one particular group that are using the resources, and they're using it in a project called Mind Your Heed. Some of you might have heard of that project. So they're using it in different parts of Aberdeenshire, and they're using our toolkit, our resources, to try and embed that. And I've also spoken to Community Learning Development. They're using the resources with their mental health educators, so it's peer educators within schools. So that would be part of our development. So how do we kind of do more of that to try and really get this out into the younger age group, as well as, all the population. But yeah, that would be a definite action we're taking forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other indications. So with that, the executive will have a look at how it can be best supported. And with the recommendation at 1.2.1, we'll continue to endorse the campaign for up to a 2-year period. Sorry, I've got a dog in the background. Up to a 2-year period. This would provide the timescale in which to use the resources and embed them within local place plans. But we would have an interim report back in 12 months to determine the way forward. And 1.2.2, agree to transfer the assets. That would be agreed in principle, which would be delegated. Chief Executive, would that be yourself or Mr. Simpson?
Mr. Simpson looks like an eligible gentleman for that.
That's right. That's fine, thank you. So it'll be delegated to Rob in conjunction with Sarah, myself and Adam Caldwell's to make the final determination. If it cannot be resolved, it will come back here. Is that agreed? Yeah. Great, okay, thank you very much. And do we have Keith on the call?
He's still trying to update his laptop, so unfortunately he's still not here, but he has been communicating with me, and if I have to put his apologies, I'll do so just now.
Okay, well, I think we'll probably have to do that within the so unfortunately, but I'll get in touch with Keith and have a chat with him outside the meeting. So that concludes the business for today, colleagues. The date of the next meeting is the 4th of June at 2 o'clock at Committee Room 2 in Woodhill House, if you can make it there. If not, we'll be hybrid. So thank you all very much indeed for your attendance and participation today. It's much appreciated, and we'll see you all again very soon. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.